So just before I get started in this video, I had to double check my maths. I've been referencing the charger as using 600 watts. It actually only pulls 384 watts, which at 240 volts is 1.6 amps. Just as a correction. Let's get on with the video. Right, today was intended to be a quick video about the 6-wheel drive and adding an AC power socket to it, or power plug. But the wind has picked up and the neighbours have started mowing the lawns. I just spent an hour looking for a $20 set of hole saws that I bought not long ago and thought it had been flogged. So very basically, we're going to put a power socket here, which is going to connect to this lead, which goes into a mains charger in here, which should charge those 24-volt battery bank. I have removed the cable gantry that goes in here so I could get a good look and an idea of the depth, which is about 50 mil deep, which means I can put the socket in there, drill through, and it'll come out here. I'm going to do most of this off camera because I just cannot be bothered working in the wind like this. Alright, so I've done a pilot hole first, and I seem to bullseye it pretty well. Well, today turned out to be a good day. There's a beam in the way. That's fun, and I happened to get it right on the edge. I thought that exploratory hole would help me. I think we're going to put a junction box over this. Alright, maybe crisis averted because the hole is a little oversized. If I take that cover off, which is obviously there for safety, I may be able to shove that in there. The problem I'm going to have is that's metal, and I have to work out how to insulate that, and so that may not be the best idea to have potentially the frame subject to, what would it be, the hot wire. That's not going to be great. Alright, and we're on. Now to deal with the insulation problem, I took some Teflon barbecue liner sheet, quite heat resistant and very good for insulation, and I laid a big section all the way across the back of that, including over the steel layer. There's plenty of room to put it in there. Now the screws on this are a little bit long, so it has pushed out a bit. Slight crack here. I will seal with some epoxy a bit later, but it's on and it's quite firm, and I can do that. Only problem now is I need a 15 amp socket. I'll have to go to Bunnings for that. Now, for those of you worried about the thin wire gauge, the max this pulls is about 600 watts. It's 24 volts, 16 amp. Not going to overload that socket. So, another problem with the windy days, trying to put the screw back in there, which is a threaded hole with an insert, and the damn thing fell on the ground somewhere. Well, surprisingly, it's a metric size and I had spares. Usually that doesn't happen with these things. Alright, that's back on. Needed a ratchet for that one because it's obviously inaccessible with a screwdriver. And that is a self-tapper, so a different one. That seems like a field mod to me. Alright, now I've got to wait for the missus to get back with a 15 amp lead for me. Okay, financial manager dropped in with some of these. So we will make ourselves up a lead now, because we couldn't find an extension lead shorter than 30 meters. Now, this is a 10 amp lead. Before we go screwing around with leads, I've got to have a bit of a talk to you. Let's have a look. This is a 10 amp plug. This is a 15 amp plug. There's a bit of a difference, namely this giant earth pin. And you might go, well, that shouldn't matter. Well, it does, because on these plugs you can pull 15 amps out of them. On these they're only designed for 10. Now if you do something silly like put one of these on one end and one of these on the other end, that I am maybe or maybe not about to do, you can end up with a situation where somebody picks this up, plugs a 15 amp device into that, runs it off this and cooks a wiring loom. And if the breaker or the other side of the circuit isn't up to muster, you can set fire to things or melt things or create generally a dangerous situation. So just mark my words, don't do that. It's not safe, it's not legal, don't do it. Also, further tip, if you are going to do something silly, at least follow the instructions in here. They actually know what they're talking about. Okay, and as an example of what not to do, this is an example of what not to do. Okay, so I didn't do this, right? There's probably a few of you screaming at the screen, or about to be writing in the comments right now, why didn't you just put a 10 amp on here? Well, this is mandated by caravan parks now. you got to have 15 amp circuits, and they all have 15 amp sockets on the power heads. So yeah, if you get caught at a caravan park using a 10 amp lead, they don't like it. They tell you to stop using the lead. Now, it is a perfectly safe thing to do to plug a 10 amp plug into a 15 amp socket, and they're pin compatible, and the earth pin will still make perfectly good contact. That's by design, because it's relatively safe to do. What isn't safe to do is to plug something in that's intended to pull 15 amps onto a 10 amp circuit. In this case, we're pulling 600 watts. Let me do that math. So 600 watts divided by 240 volts gives us about 2.5 amps or thereabouts. Alright, now we're live. Now before I touch this, what I did do was I did some safety tests. I put my earth bond tester and everything across this to the chassis, make sure there was no connections between live, active, neutral and earth to the chassis. There is a bond from the chassis to earth, which is intentional, and it also comes with bolting things in here. But let's see, do we have lights on our charger? We do have lights on our charger in here that we can't see because the damn drill's in the way. Yes, our charger is working. We are getting some solar input. But let's check our battery volts here, 28.6. Let's say it's come up to charge. We're going to call this a success. Now, some people might be complaining about the problems behind doing that. Well, the way I was doing it before, as this black lead, I would hang it out the bottom here against this pinch seal, and I would just shut the door on it and squeeze it out that gap. Alright, so I've unplugged that. We're going to go and chop that off, hopefully after I unplug the other end. And at some point I will get a 15 amp socket installed here with the relevant circuit back to the power board right there, with a certified electrician, because being a certified test and tagger does not make me a certified electrician. So I'll be getting somebody to do that properly, and then I can just use 15 amp leads for everything, except for my generator that only has a 10 amp output on it, which poses a problem I haven't considered. We'll work something out with that later. In any case, I have a generator I have made that goes straight into an Anderson plug in there, and it feeds 24 volts straight into it, negating the need for an inverter generator. I'll call this quits. It was supposed to be a quick video. I hope it was interesting. And yeah, if you guys want to do this to your Perentie, move the socket over a bit. Don't do what I did. Addendum at the end of the video here. This charger is a Victron IP22 smart charger, and it's the 24 volt version, just in case you are asking.